Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am Kristen Boyce, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a private practice, Pathways to Healing Counseling. Through conversations, education, strategies, and shared stories, we will be closing the chapter on all the thoughts, feelings, people, and circumstances that don't serve you anymore and open the door to possibilities and the real you. You won't want to miss an episode, so be sure to subscribe. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am grateful you're here with me because all the work you're doing to heal, to grow, to work on your past, your patterns, maybe some parenting issues you might have felt, we all have. I mean, if you're a parent, you can look back and have things you wish you would have known, things you wish you would have done better, regrets. What we know about parenting, it's here to help us grow and evolve. Our children are here to mirror back to us what we need to work on, what we need to heal, and how we evolve. So let me introduce you to today's guest. Dr. Angele Close is a clinical psychologist, motherhood coach, and mindfulness teacher who draws on the internal family systems, and it's IFS for short, modeling of healing and transformation to support maternal mental health and well-being. She helps mothers navigate the identity shifts of really evolution of being a mom, releasing perfectionism and shame so that you can embrace motherhood with greater self-compassion, confidence, and joy. She is the author of Unburdening Motherhood, a guide to breaking cycles, healing trauma, and becoming a self-led mom. And she gives really kind of a 4-step process on how to center ourselves when we're triggered, how to heal our wounds. It was an awesome conversation, and I think you'll walk away with some practical tools that you can apply immediately. I know I will. We were both very vulnerable in our own parenting journey. We share many of our stories because if you're a parent, you're not going to get out of the parenthood journey without triggers, without some reactivity, without really looking at your own stuff unless you've kind of sleptwalk through the process. And even then, we hold compassion and grace. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Close. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am delighted to have my guest here, really a Canadian at heart, born and raised in Canada, and made it to the Midwest, right around the corner from me. I'm in Indianapolis. She's in Forest near Chicago. So I love that, our fellow Midwesterner now. So Angele, did I say it?
You said it great. Yeah.
Yay! Dr. Close, welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here because I think we can all relate to transitions in our lives and the emotions that come with it, particularly with parenthood. So I always say, like, what lies underneath the surface when you become a parent will rise to the surface because it mirrors back to us all of our stuff, our wounds, our trigger points, maybe dormant potentially, kind of comes to the surface. So talk to us a little bit about your inspiration for the book and your own journey.
Yes. Well, I mean, the book came through my own journey, which was just what you just described. I was pretty naive because by the time I had my first kid, I was 34 and I was in graduate school to be a therapist. And so through that training, we do a lot of our own therapy. So I sort of thought, I'm good. Like I'm ready. I'm mature. I'm the right age and I've done therapy. And I was and still am a mindfulness meditation practitioner. And I just sort of thought, I've got all the skills. This is going to be great. And it's been great. Not to say it's not been great, but it was a bit of a shock to discover through parenting. And now for me, of course, everyone's journey is different. But for me, we were fortunate enough to we wanted 3 children very quickly and they were all healthy. And those early years went fairly smooth. Like I did seem to sort of adjust. I was exhausted, of course, because I'm like graduate training and getting to work and doing all of the things, of course. But for me, it was when my kids sort of got to that age that like maybe my oldest was maybe 7, 8, 9. And I I think there was an accumulation of the things for those earlier years, but you're just so busy. So you just kind of, and I talk about this in my book, like there were definitely signs of just discontent and a lot of emotions, but I just was so busy that I just kind of kept trying to ignore it. And busyness does kind of help us avoid emotions for a certain period of time until it doesn't, right? And then when my son was like, got to this age where, and he's a unique cat, like he's a neurospicy kid. And so these traditional ways of parenting were not working. They were not successful. And just felt like, dare I say, shit started to hit the fan. I felt myself internally kind of really struggling. My skills and my tools were not enough to sort of navigate what is going on here internally. And that's when I learned that I was in this process of matrescence. So I didn't know that word, and a lot of people don't know it, but it's coming. This understanding that women go through this phase of what's called matrescence, like an adolescence. So a lot of this inner struggle and these inner growing pains that I was experiencing were part of motherhood. But nobody was sort of talking about those pieces about it, right? The fact that our wounds get reactivated, the fact that we're navigating, how was I parented? How do I want to parent? And all of those things. And so that was sort of my huge lifeline, was to like learn that word. And that brought me to sort of shift my work towards moms, because I was trying to figure it out for myself and help myself, of course. And then as I did that, I thought, why do not all moms understand they're in this phase of transition? An identity transformation called matrescence. Like, it was so hugely helpful for me. So that was kind of, I would say, the planting of the seeds that I wanted to really share what was so helpful for me on my journey.
How did you find out about matrescence? Like, how did you?
Yeah.
You're the first person that's ever mentioned it over
Yeah.
330 podcasts.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it was COVID, and I was in the basement on our treadmill trying to stay sane. And I just was scrolling podcasts, and this one podcast called The Happy Mama Movement by Amy Taylor Kabaz. And so she teaches moms, and I ended up taking her course on coaching moms. But she talked about this thing called matrescence. I mean, I just click it, happy mama. I'm like, I want to be a happy mom. Why am I not happy? And I click. And as soon as I heard this word, and she describes it like the inner split, you feel like you want to be great at your career or your passions, but you're feeling torn because you also want to be a good mom. And no matter where you go, you kind of feel like you're split. And I was like, that's exactly how I've been feeling. And anyway, all of the kind of descriptions of matrescence without having heard that term, I think I was just blaming myself. Like, I just thought, I'm just not doing this right. Because none of my mom friends, I didn't have too many at the time. We had just moved to the US. And so I didn't have this community. Nobody knew what this word was. And as soon as I knew there's this word that was sort of really resonating with my experience, I dropped a lot of that self-blame and shame, of course, because I had an understanding. So it was huge. And as I tell women about matrescence, Kristen, I see their eyes light up, because it is this word to explain so many of the many inner shifts and that inner turmoil that we go through, just learning to be the mom that we want to be that parent.
I like how you're saying you split, like you're splitting. There's a sense of, I want to be a good mom, yet I still have this other desire to do career or whatever. So that's part of matrescence. Am I saying that
right?
That's
yeah,
part
absolutely.
of it, is the split feeling inside.
That's right. And the you, because we're never really the same person. There's the you before you have a child. And in fact, matrescence would say that journey sort of starts even as soon as you start to think about being a mom, if you are in that position where you're planning it and you're already starting to reconfigure, like yourself is already starting to change and adjust. But then there's no going back. Once, whether it's through adoption, surrogacy, or you give birth, I mean, as soon as that being is in your care, there's the you before and the you now. And I think we have this idea in our society, especially around fitness. It's like, get your body back, just go back, like bounce back, have this being, and then reconfigure and go back to the way you were. But you can't, and you never do. And matrescence addresses that. It makes room for that, for the journey of sort of, what am I becoming? Who am I becoming now? And it's a beautiful, amazing thing. But I think because we don't understand we're in it, we kind of miss out on opportunities to really lean into it and really thrive in it. Because instead, we're just sort of like ping-ponging around trying to cope the best way we can.
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about the age of kids that can mirror back something within us.
Yes.
So, for example, like mine are 20 and 18. They're kind of individuating and separating, having their own
Oh, yeah.
identity. I've cultivated, hopefully, where they can tell us the truth about how they feel, which can be hard. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
change it, but they're honest.
Sure.
But it mirrors back in me. And this is the invitation, I think, for all of us
Yeah.
to listen to that. If we have a reaction or a body reaction, and it could be different ages of your kids. So maybe something
Absolutely.
happened at 6 and your kids are 6 and now it's mirroring
Yes.
back. So can you talk about that?
Yes, 110%. And it is different, obviously, depending on whatever's happened to you. So whether it's sort of a big T trauma event you've had, or even things that might not sort of meet the diagnostic criteria for that, but wounds, critical incidents that we encounter in our life that sort of shift and change and become imprinted in terms of how we're developing our sense of self, our safety, security in the world, right? As we're children, that's what we're doing. We're navigating, and we can have experiences that we can misinterpret, that can be harmful and painful. And we don't often realize that until we're older, and it is in parenting that we recognize that. So one of the most common things I have noticed, both with the moms that I listen to and even in my own experience, they're mirrors to us. So I had one mom, for instance, say for her, it was her daughter's first birthday because she had this beautiful celebration. They were honoring her daughter so beautifully. And she said, I have this little jealous part that's like, I wanted to have that. Like, I was never celebrated in this way from her childhood. And so it's like beautiful and wonderful. Here I am celebrating my daughter, but then it feels almost bittersweet because internally her little girl is recognizing and feeling what she missed. So there's like grief and sadness. And through that jealousy, she could identify that's what that was. I'm missing a part. So it's a beautiful opportunity. This is in IFS, in internal family systems, which we might get to. That's what we call a trailhead. So it's a moment where our children, that little mirror is shown because we recognize we're having now an emotional reaction. Something's getting activated within us. And that's our window to now heal. Maybe not in that moment at that party per se, but we can recognize it and then we can do our own work to start to go inward to our own little inner child who's missing and then witness and help it heal.
How do you use internal family systems for those that might not be familiar to start healing? Like, let's say you get triggered by something like your child's
Yeah.
first birthday, or it could be something like I know for my husband, like repeating. Like if you have to repeat
Okay.
yourself with kids, you have to repeat yourself a lot.
Yeah.
So like that was a trigger for him and he had to unpack that. So
Mm.
how does internal family systems help someone start dealing with those triggers,
Yeah.
that maybe body reaction or intensity you might have
Yeah.
towards something your child has said, done,
Yeah.
just an event?
That's a great question because that's what we want to be able to do, right? And in my book, I have sort of a 4-step process. But before I explain the 4-step process, it's important to sort of understand IFS is a model that recognizes we are multiple. We are one person. I'm not saying we have multiple personality, but we sort of have parts and within us that help us navigate life. And so if you don't like the word parts, sometimes we use energies, inner different reactions within us, right? So one part of me really wants to get a second dog because I think of how exciting it would be. Then another part of me thinks all the logistics. And so it's more like this other analytical part. So we all have these parts within us that are helping us navigate life in ways so that we prevent pain ultimately and help cope with life and get our needs met. And so really the benefit of having this understanding of ourself in that way is so that when something happens within us, like in that example I just gave, it wasn't just jealousy. There was also grief. There was also maybe sadness, right? And then also a part within her that wants to help heal and do something, like to feel better, right? And navigate that. So first is to sort of pause, halt. I use the acronym HEAL just to remember it. So the H is just to sort of halt and notice and just observe. And then the E is to explore what parts of me are here. So you're just kind of observing. Okay, so there I noticed there's this part that feels like a jealous mood and then there's some sadness, or maybe it's somatic. Maybe there's just my throat's clenching or something there. Could be a sensation or could be thoughts in the mind. So we just sort of notice and explore the parts that are there. And then we want to ask the parts, what are they concerned about? Like, why are they here? Kind of, do they have, especially if it's like a part that's very protective, especially with our kids, it's going to come up because it has a concern. It doesn't want people to judge us, for instance, right? So say I'm in a public space. That's a very common part I hear from moms. It's like, I just have this part that just, when I'm home, I can be more nonchalant, I can be chill and relaxed. But suddenly when I'm in public, this part just wants to like nip it in the bud and it gets stern. And as we uncover that, that's a part that's really protective of you because it's concerned about what other people think, right? So that the A in the heal model is just like, ask what the parts need. So if I jump back to that other example, those are just little parts that need some healing and love because they just recognize for this mom I worked with, like she missed out. And so she needs to do some inner child work there for that jealous part. That jealous part isn't jealous really at her daughter. It's just signaling to her she needs to do some self-care, some comfort there. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you got to kind of get to know the parts. And then the L is ask the self to lead. So this is where we lead from our self energy. Self energy isn't a part. It is what we all have. In IFS, the creator, Dick Schwartz, calls it capital S self to represent that energy of that's the sort of core essence of who we are, not our parts, the parts that are trying to help us do life, but sort of our true self. So you could use different words, right? Like different contemplative practices, traditions, or, we use different language like your Buddha nature or your Christ consciousness or the universal energy or whatever word works for you. But it is just it's awareness too. So from my mindfulness practice, my teacher, Jack Kornfield, would refer to it as loving open awareness. It's just like when we're not in self-protection mode, right? Trying to do, and we can just be. That's sort of the essence of all of us. And we all have that within us. And so this is a practice to sort of connect with the parts, see what they're concerned about. But then ultimately you want to be able to choose with that energy, be a little more self-led in your parenting so that you're caring for your own parts. And then you're engaging with your children or in your life, not from those parts per se that can sometimes pull us in the wrong direction, right? Because does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I love this acronym for folks and how you broke it down because you can actually apply it. You can go heal. Okay. Awareness. Start using this in your own life. Like this is a practical step to start. So if you get nothing else, start with heal. Like start with this and pay attention. Because, for example, over the weekend, my daughter was stressed out. She was overwhelmed. She's exhausted. And so it was like, she's in a mood. So I had to really work on regulating my nervous system. So I didn't take it personally. Because I think as parents, we can start taking things personally.
All the
time, right? This is like our invitation. So if you're listening, you're like, oh my gosh, I so do that when my kid yells or has a tantrum or just isn't in a mood, especially when they're teens. And if you notice I'm having a reaction, that was an invitation for me to heal. That's
great. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it.
What's the part that's coming up in me? It's taking it personally. It's not like your deep, wise self in those moments.
Exactly.
It's like a younger part of you that's feeling something. That's the power in the IFS model is because we are self-healers, ultimately. We don't need things in our environment. You don't need your kids to do anything differently. In fact, that's not the best way forward. In life, it's to feel that I can show up for myself and my parts in a healthy, mature way. And then we become less, that's where, the baggage that we take out on our kids and it's fine. It's not to say it's wrong or bad, because I think we all do this on a level because we're human. That's what we do. But to be able to have that step-by-step process to turn inward first and then see, is this a part in me that I just really miss her? And it's reeling a little bit. It needs some self-soothing. And then you can self-soothe it. And then the next time you go to your daughter, you're going to be in more self-energy. And she's going to respond in kind because self-energy is very contagious.
And it's secure. Right? It's like a secure, safe energy you're bringing to the table rather than a reactive, anxious.
Yeah, I want something from you. Like,
and you need to soothe me versus like you're switching roles. It's like, and when you stay in that self energy, if someone's listening, like for me, I will just say, I will have that heal in my head. For me, I was just like, breathe,
always
breathe, feet on the floor, breathe, stay in my body. Like heal would be a great acronym, like have in your mind to go pause, heal, to start using this to help you gain your self energy. Connect to self energy.
That's right. Because you can turn in, see the parts that are there, but then not act from them. So you can
Yes.
know, once our parts know that we're there, so it's almost like I talk to these parts myself and just like, oh, I see you. I see that you're active right now. I see that you're hurting. I care. You can do like a little self-compassion if that can really help. It does calm our nervous system because our parts are wanting things.
Mm-hmm.
But we can be that steady anchor from that self-awareness energy, right? Observing it. And so it's the pause before we respond or react more like to our kids that really is the opportunity for freedom, really, to just really show up in the ways that we want to. The less likely that we have to do repairs, right? The more we do that, then
Yes.
the less repair we might
Yes. And
have.
then the better you feel. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was able to do this work. I was able to like take a
that's right.
breath and calm my body and not react to whatever the mood or whatever was said. It's like putting your oxygen mask on. We've heard that analogy so many times on
Yeah,
first, but it's so hard in the moment when something gets activated in you and you
that's
want to be
right.
like, oh, do you not see what you're doing? And it's like, no, that's not going to help the situation. You have to soothe yourself first. So I love this acronym. And then you said you had 4 steps in your book, the 4 steps or
Well,
the
so
4.
so those are the 4 steps of the
This
healing.
is okay, this is
That's
it.
right. Yeah.
Perfect.
My book really is pretty granular in the sense that it goes through describing different types of parts that we have, like mom parts that I hear of and learn about a lot. And then at the end of each chapter are different like guided meditations that can help moms go inside. And the thing that I love about IFS too is this doesn't have to take a super long time. I mean, the reality of being a parent is time is precious. And to do that heal practice or to just check in with your parts, you can do it throughout the day. It doesn't need to take more than a couple minutes to feel already more, like you said, kind of anchored and grounded and present. And we do feel empowered because we feel more self-confident when we know we can take care of our own parts.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is really key. What I see a lot when folks come in, and I've done it too, we're all humans, is we want our child to see our parts. We
Yeah.
want them to acknowledge us and get what we're saying and hear us just like we want it from our parents. And
Totally.
they're not fully developed. I mean, they're in a developmental cycle depending on their age that they're not capable sometimes of. I mean, that's not their job to
Totally.
offer that to us. And so when we start noticing we want that from our kid, I always say, okay, there's
Mhm.
something invitation for us. It's a
Absolutely.
part online.
What a good trailhead, right? Because you're right. It's like a lot of our parts are these little children. They haven't gotten the update. They are functioning. They're trying to get their needs met. But if we haven't healed some of these wounds that we have had, these unmet needs, they do try to get them met. You're right. And through our children. And it isn't the healthiest way. And so paying attention to that is really important. Like you said, if we start to take things personally, if you start to feel like, oh, I feel rejected by my teen, I'm feeling wounded there. That is
Mm.
100% something to turn inward and pay attention to that part so that you can show up for it as your adult self. So it really is a reparenting process.
It is. And when people say, I don't want to like go
Yeah.
back, what does that have to do with anything? Let's just put it's in the past. It's over now. What does it matter? What do you say to that?
Wouldn't it be nice if that were true? But I mean, I think there's a part inside that just wants to deny because it is painful, because it's not easy work. But for me, when I recognized I needed to go back into the therapy office because the ways that I had coped with the traumas of my life were getting in the way of me showing up for my kid. Like my nervous system was just shutting into freeze mode. This was not helpful when you have a kid who needs some emotional attunement and some co-regulation. So back I go right into the office. But for me, there's nothing more important is because I realized now I value therapy. So it wasn't hard to get me back in there. And I think everyone benefits from doing our own inner work. Now, whether that's with a therapist or a life coach or healer of some sort. But what bigger incentive is there than to say, I want to heal myself so that I'm not burdening? Because whatever I don't heal, I am going to burden on my kid in one way, shape, or form. Not consciously, not intentionally, but it will unintentionally land on my kid if I am reaching to them to meet my unhealed emotional needs. And we only have a certain window. So for me, it was like, okay, I got to figure this out now. The sooner that I can do this work for myself, then my kids are going to benefit. So I kind of say, I point that out to parents because we want to be better for our kids, right? Nobody really wants to pass on our gunk to our children. And we will feel better. You deserve to heal too. So not that that's the only incentive, But I find for a lot of moms who put themselves lower on that list, unfortunately, right? That's self-sacrificing. And just to say too, that it doesn't require experiencing true little shifts doesn't necessarily require like weekly psychotherapy. Like it's not going to take forever. IFS meditations, when I learned them and started practicing them, were incredibly effective, which is why I trained in the model and got so excited because it doesn't take much. As soon as you can go inside and realize I can get to know these parts and help them through that healing process, it's almost like instant change. And so I just offer hope. I just think it's so worth it. Moms are worth it. Parents are worth it. And I think everybody benefits.
I do too. Okay, you
Right.
said so many nuggets here that I think are
All right.
important. The first one is we don't want to be a burden. How many times have you heard this from clients? Like, I don't want to be a burden to anybody. But what you said is if you don't kind of go back and heal those parts,
Yeah,
that you will unburden them to your children in
that's
some
right.
unconscious way, not intentionally. I think that was so important to say because that's what we don't want to do. We're
Yeah.
trying so hard to break patterns and break cycles, but unconsciously, if we don't face
Yeah.
the pain of the past, it's like a leaky boat. It kind of leaks out in unconscious ways. And if someone says, well, how do I pass that along to my kids if I've really changed pattern? Like I don't yell at my kids like I was young, etc. How does it still leak onto them if I'm doing things quote unquote differently?
Yeah. Well, we just do it in different ways, right? And it's not to say we're going to get it and not pass anything on to our kids, even if we're doing our healing and work. We're not striving for perfection. I just want to say that too, because
Yes.
some of our inner perfectionist parts are like, I'm going to do it perfectly. Like, no, because as I've realized and I've been on this journey myself, I mean, it's a lifelong journey, really. You have a relationship with your children, hopefully, unless now there's a lot of talk about this no contact thing. But in general, we know we want to stay in connection with our kids for the remainders of our lives. And so we're always working to nourish that relationship, right? And the more that we understand ourselves and heal our own little children, the more we can show up as that healthy adult. And so we have the clarity. Self-energy has these 8 C's associated with it. Clarity is one of them. Connection is the other one. Calm and curiosity. So our parts don't often stay in curiosity because they have these agendas, right? They're trying to protect us from pain. So they try to control a lot of the time. And so we know a lot of kids don't respond well to controlling right? So there's this ping-ponging reaction when we're really parts-led with our kids. So it's not that we're not going to have parts that feel what they feel or want to do what they do. But if we have that relationship with them from our own self-energy and we can do the heal and we're regularly connecting with them, we have the clarity to kind of notice when we get taken over. So for instance, I will know when I'm very familiar with one of my protective parts that wants my kids to get to school on time. When that energy starts taking me over, I can hear it in my voice. It's getting a bit louder. It gets a little sharper. That's not how I always show up in the world. That's a part of me that comes into my parenting role a lot because it wants to control and it has an agenda. And so some mornings, so I'm aware of that part. I have a relationship with that part. And sometimes if it gets carried away, I'll have to catch it and notice it when I do the heal. And then I'll say to my kid, a part of me is just getting really amped up right now because blah, blah, blah. And then I might even explain it because I understand what that part wants. And so it's not that I'm not going to have a reaction. But that has been one of the most helpful tools, both even in my marriage, to be able to understand what our parts are reacting to, what's important to them, what they're afraid of. And so when we can get that insight into them, because we can go inside and we have that relationship with ourself, with the parts within us, then I can communicate for them. So it's not like I'm obliterating them, but I can speak for them instead of from them. Does that make sense? So
Makes
they don't have
perfect
to
sense.
take me over. They don't have to.
They're not running the show.
That's right. I'm sort of like if you imagine like a committee, I'm the chairperson and I can get the insight and understanding of the committee members and I can use their insights, right? Our parts are very skilled as well. They have insight and ability to really do a lot for us. And so I want to always be in connection with them, but I don't want them to be running the show because when they do, things get really messy. And that's the sort of irony or bitter irony of the parts of us is if we're not doing that work, because going back to your question, if someone's like, well, I don't want to do that work, but then your parts are doing your parenting for you. They're the ones that are going to be engaging and having these conversations with their agendas. And you're just going to feel not as connected to your kids as you could be.
I love that you said that because the parts are doing the work, not your capital S self that feels open and expansive and curious and all
Curious.
the eight
Yeah.
C's like Claire. So it changes the ability to connect if you're
Yes.
functioning from the younger parts.
That's right. Because our kids know when
Yes, they
they
do.
sense it. And then they have parts too. I mean, our kids are human, so they have their own protective system. So whenever you're having like a conflict with your kid, it's some of your protective parts are now triggering some of their protective parts, right? And so now
Yes.
we're caught. We're just both digging in with our own inner protective systems. So when we have more self energy and can be more self led, that is where truer connection, better connection can really happen.
And I would say if you're feeling that the younger part that wants to protect that yourself, I'm like, you're not hearing me. You're not hearing me. Do you hear what I'm saying? I hear what you're saying, but do you hear what I'm saying? Those will be like, okay, I've got work to do. I get my journal out. Sometimes I say, okay, I need to get back into therapy. A part got activated.
Yeah.
Like this is the awareness, the self-awareness with the heal practice
Yeah.
to know, oh, this is a part that probably needs, there's something there to explore.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Yeah. Something to figure out, something to get
Yes.
curious about so that you can address that part's need.
Yes. That's where then the connection with your child becomes more expansive because you're aware that that part got activated. You might not know what it's about in the moment. That's okay.
That's right.
It's staying curious and then write it down. So then you can either journal about it, go to a therapist, work with that part in some way with your meditation in the book, get one of your meditations, something. When we bury it and we ignore it or we busy ourselves away from it, that part's still there. It's going to get activated again. And not to say it won't, even if you do therapy, but I think that's the key you're saying. Like it's going to be there and it's just going to keep coming up.
That's right. Absolutely. So I can give you even an example from my own life where I had to work on this. I'll just speak just to give people something tangible and what you just explained so beautifully, Kristen. So I come from a childhood like where everybody was loud, talked over me. I was like the quiet one, two very loud, boisterous parents and an older brother, and everyone I just always interrupted. And so I just accommodated, like, and my personality is just like, I'm not going to fight for airtime. So that's important to know. So now as a parent, and I have some, one of my kids has ADHD and just doesn't have can't sit and listen to long rants of conversation. Too many words. Now I feel like I have so much to say now that I'm a grown up and I'm a parent, I have a part that just wants to talk and talk. And dare I say talk/lecture sometimes, like gets on this podium, right? I think a lot of moms do. And so one day, and so I would notice in the car when I would just go too long, and my kid, he's grown now and uses better language. But at the time, it was just like, stop. Like he would just yell, stop, because his nervous system is getting activated. And at first, so I recognized, ooh, that kind of hurts. Something inside hurts. And I had to go get curious and I had to get to know this part and figure out, because it was feeling silenced. Like the hurt within me had nothing to do with my kids because I had awareness to know it's not personal. That's just what they can tolerate and they can focus on, and has nothing to do with me, but my part was hurt because this little part that felt like there was no space and nobody listened to me. And so I had to go to that part and say, I'm always here from my self energy. I'm always here to listen to you and I will listen to you. So I could heal that part that never got heard and do that piece of work. And then once I was able to do that, Kristen, every future interaction with my spouse, my 3 children, 3 teens that don't really want to listen too much to me, I don't take it personally. And I don't react in that way anymore because that part has been healed. So you literally, the more we know our parts and can help them do the healing work that they need, we don't actually get reactive anymore, not nearly as much, or maybe it'll be a different part, right? But that part can actually heal and feel unburdened.
This is so beautiful. And I hope some people are listening feel inspired by it because they're like, oh, I don't know. I'm just constantly triggered. That's understandable. And that's a part. And I love how self-aware you are. And that's where you get when you do this work. You get to the point where you know your part and you know yourself that well that you can take care of them.
That's right.
That's the beauty. You're not like hoping someone else is going to see that part and someone else is going to acknowledge that and nurture it. You get to do that. And that is empowering.
100%. I do think it is one of the most empowering and sort of compassionate models for healing for that reason. that the power really is within inside us, all of us. Yeah, sometimes we might, with some more significant, painful emotions, we might need someone to help us regulate and heal that deeper stuff. But there's a lot we can do just within ourselves and learning to change our relationship to our inner system, to our parts.
And when we do our own work, we model for our kids that there's no such thing as perfect. We all have stuff, and it's okay to ask for help and seek help in whichever way that looks for a person. Like, it's okay. Like, that normalizes that we're all going to have life challenges and stuff that comes up for us and parts that get activated and our body might have a response. I think that's the beautiful gift we give and being open about it. I'm very open about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, talk to my therapist, not to overshare, but to show, hey, this is the work I'm doing. And they notice, they notice when you do your own work, they can feel it. And
I
their
think
nervous
that's
system.
so, I agree with you totally, Kristen, that this old adage about like parents hiding any of their faults or their, like, what does that do for your kids? So then they're going to feel alone in their own struggles. That's the indirect impact of that way of being is I think we do our kids a disservice by not showing them our vulnerability. We're not supposed to be experts. I hope that old paradigm, that's part of the old paradigm that's kind of going by the wayside, because I 100% agree. We need to be models to our kids to show what does it look like to care for yourself. Caring for myself isn't just going to the gym to care that. Yes, that's great for my physical and maybe also my emotional too, but so is connecting with somebody who can help me go inside and really take care of my emotional health.
Yes. What is a book or two that has inspired you in your own life or changed your way of thinking? And it can be anything.
I mean,
Or maybe has the most impact on you.
So two come to mind. One is on The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer.
Love that book.
Do you? Good. It changed my life. It was like before I read that book and after. And I think I was like in my early 20s when I read it too, really needing, it just opened up so much. And then I guess I'll share the one I'm rereading now, which is Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach.
These are great books. I love
So
them.
I read it, but that was like one of her, I think her first book.
Yeah.
And I read it years ago. It's pretty old now, but I'm revisiting it and it's, just deepening my practice as well. It's beautiful. Just the two wings of the bird, the mindfulness and noticing what's here, and that second wing of just compassion and kindness. And I think it integrates beautifully too with IFS. So
those are great recommendations. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you felt was important as we wrap up?
I think the last thing I would just say, because whenever we talk about parents doing their own work, I can so appreciate parents and they're just trying to keep their head above water. It's like, I'm just trying to, I'm treading water. Like now there's this other thing that I have to do and it could be overwhelming. And so I just want to offer that it doesn't take much and you'll start to benefit immediately by turning inward and being curious and compassionate to yourself. Just that little piece. And the compassion is key too, because you're not supposed to be perfect. This isn't about noticing the parts of you. Because what I love in IFS is all parts belong. Dick Schwartz's book, so if readers know of IFS or interested in it, his recent book is called No Bad Parts. That once we get to understand all of the parts have good intentions for us, so even if parts might behave in ways that we're not so proud of, for instance, I drink too much. Well, that's a part of you that's trying to ease and self-soothe in some way. We know that about alcohol. It does play that role for a lot of people. So it's once you can get that curious and go inside, you'll see its good intention. And so it is such a model for self-compassion and true self-love. So I would just offer that it's worth it. Just play around with it a little bit. To not be intimidated by it and just to try and see for themselves.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Where can people find you? If they're like, I love her, where can they find your work? And I'm going to link your book in the show notes in the newsletter.
Great. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, my own website, so Dr. Angele Close. And the book is Unburdening Motherhood, and it's sold everywhere. And I have some stuff on my website too, some little videos and some more information about matrescence if people are curious to learn more about that. And they can connect with me that way if they would love. I would love that. Be great.
Thank you so much for being here and your work you're doing in the world. You are changing lives. And I so enjoyed our time together today.
This was great to chat. Thanks for having me, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Close the Chapter podcast. My hope is that you took home some actionable steps along with motivation, inspiration, and hope for making sustainable change in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button to be sure to get the updated episodes every week and share with a friend or a family member. For more information about how to get connected, visit Kristen, Kristen, Boyce, Boice.com. Thanks and have a great day.